Hi, I'm Amber, and welcome to the Lone Star Keto Podcast. Today, we have a special guest with us, Jonathan Shane. He is a functional nutritional therapy practitioner. He's also the founder of Keto Road and also the host of the podcast, The Road. Welcome, Jonathan.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to dive in today.
Absolutely. I can't wait to hear your story and everything that you've been up to. I follow Jonathan a lot, and he puts out great stuff, and him and his wife are expecting. That's so exciting. I want to talk a little bit about that. That's very exciting. But let's start with your background. I want to know a little bit about your health journey and how you got to where you are now.
Oh yeah, for sure. So it kind of started off when I was 14. I was 260 pounds. Backstory there quickly. I just grew up kind of watching my mom deal with stresses of life. You know, she was a single mom trying to care for her kid and, you know, working through that and just everything that comes with it. And so emotional eating was something she picked up on, and it's something I picked up on. And so fast forward, 14 years old, 260 pounds. My doctor told me that I might die, for lack of a better term. Just because like my cholesterol was crazy. I had a 50-inch waist. That was huge for a 14-year-old. That was huge. And so something in me like got ignited, and like that, I remember that day I went home and I ran like 2 miles. I made myself throw up and pass out. Like, I remember this whole like thing. Like, I'll never forget it, like step by step. And it just set me on this trajectory of like fat loss. And within a year, I lost like 100 pounds. But I did it the real bro sciencey way, right? So like I cut all the fat out of my diet. I mean, literally my diet was Captain Crunch, skim milk, fat-free ranch, spinach leaves, and chicken breast. That's literally all I ate for like a year straight. And so I lost all the weight, but with those hormonal things, I was going through puberty too. So like all of that coming and going, like, obviously hunger hormones were all over the place. I didn't know it at the time, but it led to me starting to have a lot of craving and binge tendencies and impulses. And that, along with the emotional eating, started to become an issue. And so I found myself in a weird place of, people were starting to be nice to me. I was starting to date more. I was skinny and lean, and, unfortunately society, while I don't think obese is like something that you should stay in, I do think that people should be accepted for where they're at. Right. But that's just not how society works, unfortunately. And so I associated being skinny with being accepted in society. And so I was willing to hurt myself to maintain that. And so up came my bulimia. Struggle with bulimia from the time I was 15 until about 2 years ago was when my last relapse was. And I mean, it got bad. It got to the point where I was throwing up blood. There were days I couldn't like drink fluids in the morning because the scar tissue hurt so bad. It was just, it just got really, really bad. So then my parents found out, and that was really, really embarrassing, because then it was weird because like I would go to the bathroom and then come back out, and they would like talk to me and smell my breath to see if they could smell throw up. Like, and I knew what they were doing, but they would never say it. It was just like, it was so awkward. But I really wanted to actively start working on it. I found my faith when I was 16, and that kind of helped me really, because they found out when I was 16. And so I really started to try to at least actively working on it, like realizing, okay, my body has worth, right? I shouldn't lose weight just to be skinny and be like, I should be healthy because I should be healthy. And so then started the journey of like trying to define what that looked like. And I still struggled. I relapsed on my bulimia, even into my marriage. I got married when I was 20. And I would, have episodes, and my wife would find it, and it was embarrassing, but I was constantly trying to search and figure out the answer. Right. And during one of my yo-yo dieting phases, in the fall of 2017, I fell upon the keto diet. I had tried it once before, back when like the original keto bar came out, and it went terrible. I knew nothing about electrolytes and any of that. So it was like just miserable. I was like, this is not my diet. But then I found some videos about electrolytes this time around, tried it, felt great. And then I had one cheat day in October, and then I had Christmas cookies, Christmas Eve of 2017. And I woke up feeling terrible both times. And so after Christmas of 2017, I said, I'm never going back to a standard American diet ever. And I haven't looked back since.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good little journey right there. Can we talk a little bit more about the bulimia? And I think you probably already know that I suffered from that too. And I was about the same age as you. But of course I was a female. And in an odd way, it was almost like this accepted thing within my peer group of girls. And matter of fact, my best friend at that time was doing it, and it kind of made me go, oh, wow, I could have what I want and not have to worry about it. So that's what kind of got me started anyway. But as a female, it was kind of in an odd way accepted. What was it like for a male? To me, that seems like it would be more of a, I don't know, a stigma. I'm not sure what the right word would be, but a lot harder on a male than a female.
Yeah. So it was, man, it's actually, no one's ever asked that question. When I actually think about, like, I can talk about like what it's like being a man talking about it, but when I was going through it and it's worse, no one knew. Like, it was just me. Like, it's not like I told my best friends about it. Like, it was an isolated habit that no one knew about. And I think that, and granted, I'm not saying that it's not more dangerous for men to have bulimia than women. I think it's dangerous for any human being who struggle with this disease, this disorder. But for men, I feel like there's so much more danger because it is something that is not manly, right? And it's kind of embarrassing. And so, like, you do not talk about it. It is a fight that you fight alone. For a lot of people, there are so many men out there that struggle with things like this, and they feel so unmanly or unmasculine to come out and talk about it. And so, I mean, until my parents found out, no one knew. And honestly, I didn't start. So the only person outside of my parents that found out later was my wife. And then after that, most of my friends in my life didn't start to find out that I had bulimia until 2 years ago when I started actively talking about it. So, I mean, I went through the first, I don't know, 6 years of the 8 years that I've had bulimia. No one knew about it outside of people that found out through like finding throw up on the toilet or something.
Wow. Yeah. Mine was very secretive too, except for within the tight little group of girls that were doing this in my high school. But my family didn't know, and I hid that. And it was actually my boyfriend, who is now my husband, that figured it out. And he was the one that made me stop. So, like, how did that work for you? You said your parents found out, is that correct? And like, how did you go about dealing with this? I mean, because some people, they have to go to recovery like anything else. Did you have to do that?
I did not. And I've heard some terror stories about eating disorder therapists, so I'm kind of glad I didn't.
Me too.
Some people might need that. I did not need it, although I was in a place that my mom had every right to throw me in one, because like I got skinny. Like I was 5'11", 6 foot. And I went from like, I was 260 at my heaviest. I got down to like 190. And then at my smallest with my bulimia, I was like 165, 170. Like, and that's skin and bones for someone my height. Like I said, I was throwing up blood at times. There were times I couldn't eat because my throat hurt so bad. I wouldn't be able to get out of bed some mornings because my stomach was so twisted. Like I was hurting myself. So my mom had every right to do that. But she didn't, for whatever reason. She trusted that I was going to get my crap together. So they found out, and it was embarrassing that they found out, but I still did it. Like I still found ways around it. Like I would throw up in bags and then throw it in the trash can. I went to take out the trash. So how my mom found out was there were rocks in my backyard, and I would throw up under the rocks and then shut the rocks on it. And my dogs found it. And that's how my mom found my throat for the first time.
Wow.
And so what I started doing was that I started throwing up in the shower. So I would throw up in the shower and put it down the drain. Crazy things I would try to do. So my parents, it was embarrassing, and it was kind of a realization that, okay, this is wrong. But at that point, I was so addicted to the rush of doing it. Like, that's the thing people don't understand. Like at first you're doing it because you're uncomfortable in your skin and you don't accept who you are, and body dysmorphia might be an issue there, but it becomes an addiction. Like you get addicted to that adrenaline rush of like throwing up and feeling the relief. And then all of a sudden your adrenals shoot cortisol because like you're in a stressful state, and like your head gets lightheaded. Like you go through this whole thing, and it literally becomes like taking a hit of a drug almost. And so I knew it was wrong at that point, and it was awkward, but like I was addicted to having that satisfaction, quote unquote. one thing that really helped was my faith, right? So like I became born again Christian when I was 16, right? Like I went to a Bible study and, I was told the whole spiel, about how like, because of my decisions, I was separated from God, Jesus died for my sins. And I decided to accept that and give my life to that. And it really did change me. Like I woke up the next morning, like with a new perspective on things. It was really weird, amazing, but weird from like a human perspective. Because like I felt different. Like I realized like I had this like weird sense of worth about myself. And that really helped. Like it cut so like when my parents, I was doing it every day. Like I was throwing up in the bathroom at school. I was throwing up at home. I was throwing up wherever, throwing up salads, whatever. And then when my parents found out, I pulled back on it. It was maybe 3 or 4 times a week whenever I got triggered or I'd eat something or whatever. Cause I was still struggling with the binging because of the hormones and stuff. And then when I 17, it kind of cut down to like once every couple months. Like I would do good for a couple months and then I would relapse. And then that went on from time I was 16, 17 until about 2 years ago. Like every like 3 or 4 months, I would just have a bad day. I would have a bad binge and I would make myself throw up. And then I might make myself throw up again for a couple more days after that. And then, I'd go back and I'd have like a 4-month win streak. And so that the faith really gave me a foundation. But what really helped, and I think this is the important part, because I think that with or without having a faith base, this is the thing that needs to be addressed, is 2 years ago when I had a relapse after being keto for 9 months, I was like, whoa, because keto helped me the longest I had went without making myself throw up since before I started throwing up. Like I went 9 months without puking. And I made myself do it during a reverse diet for my first bodybuilding prep. And when I did it, I was like, whoa, okay, I need to figure this out. And so what I realized was that bulimia was a manifestation of a deeper issue. And the deeper issue was my body dysmorphia. And that's when I found out what body dysmorphia was. Hashtag Keto Coach Lauren. She helped me. Her talking about it made me dig into it. And I was like, and it wasn't even like, maybe I have this. Okay. No, like I was reading the symptoms and I was like, dude, my body, my life for the past 10 years screams body dysmorphia. Like I couldn't ignore it. And so what I had to do is I had to, not relapsing on my bulimia was like trimming the branches of a tree, and I had to dig the roots out, right? Because like the tree can always grow branches back. So I had to take the tree out of my ground. And the roots of the tree were this lie that like, unless I was a certain weight and I looked a certain way and I was able to control my food intake, then I was this ugly, fat piece of crap. And I had to replace that with a truth that, loving myself and caring for myself and being healthy is not the same thing as trying to quote unquote look societally healthy and look like, ripped or lean or, and if people don't accept me the way I am, then they're not really my friends and they're not worth my time. But I had to learn that self-confidence. And so that really started in September of 2017. And then that's when I started speaking out about it on social media. That's when I started keto coaching. And that became kind of like what I helped people wrestle with outside of just weight loss. And then it's progressed since then, and I haven't relapsed since.
That's awesome. And what you're saying is so incredibly true. Do you, like with the body dysmorphia, generally there is a reason for that, like something has triggered you. Like for me, it started in 5th grade when I started to develop and I got made fun of for it. And so I thought there was something wrong with my body. And at that time I wasn't really I was a normal child. I had a real round face, but I was normal weight and everything for a child. I wasn't the skinny kid, but I started to develop. So therefore I was fat. And so I got teased, and that set the tone for the rest of my life, and did something like that happen to you? Like, can you pinpoint? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was bullied hard in school. Like from the time I was in 5th grade, 4th or 5th grade, until like my sophomore year of high school, I was bullied hard. I mean, I got made fun of about everything. Like, it would be, my weight, my hair. Somebody would find out something about my life and make fun of me. I remember one time Cause like my mom couldn't afford, you know, she got me what I needed, right? She was amazing at that, but she didn't always get me what I wanted, which was fine. I shouldn't get all that I want. But I remember one time there was a pair of Jordans at Walmart, and I was so excited to have Jordans like my friends, but they were fake because they were at Walmart. I didn't know, but I bought them and I was so excited. I was so proud, and I got tore up when I got to school. And, you know, and then things like that. And then when you're overweight, when you're a man, this is something I've never said on a podcast. This is going to be real. When you're a man and you're overweight, especially when you're still developing in those areas, it tends to cover and shroud the male reproductive system quite well. And so I got made fun of for that. And so that was always an issue. And that followed me after I lost weight, that people would still bring up the way it used to be. And it was, especially like in the football locker room, because, you know, you all take showers together. It's like a thing. And don't worry, we all use separate shower heads, people. But, you know, so like I was constantly berated. And so I think it was just years of being that. And so when I lost the weight and a lot of those jokes went away, that was such a powerful, like, I can't gain weight. And so I think that those traumatic experiences, plus there was a lot of stuff that happened with like my family that was traumatic, and a sense of acceptance from like my dad and stuff when I was younger. We're good now, but back then my perception of things was very distorted. And so it led to me feeling a certain way about things. And so like I was constantly looking for acceptance. And so if I didn't feel like I was in a place that acceptance was warranted, then I felt fat and ugly. So like I would get on, and I think this is like where the actual, because I think people with body dysmorphia, I think what they think is like, I get on the scale and like, you know, I just think I'm fat, and so I'm fat, right? But that's not what it is. Like I get on, if I'm having like a bad episode, like let's say like, and we can go into the things that I do nutritionally to like keep my mood hormones good, my neurotransmitters good. But like, let's say like I'm not doing that, and like my serotonin's down, my dopamine's down, and I'm not getting enough vitamin D, whatever. And I step on the scale and I'm 3 pounds up, and I'm just really negative. I can look in the mirror and I like, to myself, I perceive that I am fatter, even though nothing's changed. Like it is weird. And it's something that it's a neurological disorder that grows over time. Because at first it probably wasn't like that. At first I probably gained a pound and I look in the mirror and go, I don't know, am I kind of chubby? But then like you focus on it and then you get really negative. And then eventually your brain starts to distort what you see. And I mean, that's what body dysmorphia is, right? Like it's a dysmorphic view of yourself. Like anorexic people have body dysmorphia. Like a lot of them, some of them, maybe not, maybe some of them look at themselves and they just feel fat, but there are a lot of them that even though they look so sick to us, they're looking in the mirror and they think they look fat. Like it's not a joke to them. Like that's what they see. And so I think that's what a lot of people don't understand that about that disorder. And so, yeah. And so like the fat, and then the other one was like, for some reason, my arms have always been a trigger point for me. Like I've always felt like I have small arms. And so like, I remember when I was in college, there would be weeks I would work out my arms like 5-6 times a week. Like the next morning I would cry trying to pick up a glass of water because I had worked out my arms so hard. Cause I just thought they were so tiny. And obviously they're not, I know that now, but like, it was weird, man. Like I remember like there were times like I would take a photo like on Instagram and people like, oh, your arms look huge, dude. And I'd like look down and I'm like, with their twigs, right? I would see like this twig. And it took me so long to like take like get a healthier perspective. And of course, other things come into that. So yeah, I mean, to kind of explain, like, I think there were a lot of things over the course of a lot of years that compounded to triggering the buildup of what I now, you know, actively try to fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you're speaking out specifically because you're a man. I mean, I love anybody speaking out, but you know, you don't hear that very much from men because like you said, it does kind of has this manly like thing that you just don't do. I'm not really sure why, but that's society for you. But okay, so you've done a lot of healing. You've done a lot of work. Now, my question is, when you look in the mirror now, what do you see?
Oh, okay. Oh, that's a good question. So most of the time I look in the mirror and I see a man that has defied his own odds. I see a man that has built something from nothing. I see a man that has helped others build themselves. I see a man that is healthy, that can go run 10 miles whenever he wants. You know, that can go to the gym and push heavy weight around whenever he wants, that eats healthy, that provides for his family, that's going to be a father, right? Like I see this amazing human that is capable of so much, a human that God loves, right? Like that's what I see. And it took so long to get to that point, like, because I used to see a disgusting piece of crap. And so most days the person I see in the mirror is not someone that I would have recognized 2 years ago at all. Most of the time.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. I'm in tears, but that makes me so freaking happy. I feel you from the depths of my soul. I feel you. So I'm so happy where you're all right now, because it's so hard to get to that place. And people don't understand that. If they've not had to have the struggles that we've had, they don't understand it. Mm-hmm. And so major kudos for coming out and talking about it. And that's one thing that really attracted me to you, is when I would see certain things like that. And I would be like, oh, wait, I need to pay attention now. Okay. Wow. This guy, he's getting it, and so I'm super happy about that. Oh, okay. So let's talk just a little bit before we get into more in-depth stuff. Mm-hmm. You and your wife are expecting. Let's talk a little bit about that. Okay. And what is your wife eating? How are y'all dealing with this whole thing? Like, what are your plans? I want to know all that good stuff.
Okay. Yeah. So Ashley is, she was doing keto when she first started, but we talked about it and understand that, like, I do not dictate my wife's diet, right? Like, she is her own human. And I think that's important for spouses that do keto to understand, like, you can't like make them eat that way, but that also means that you can't encourage it. Right. So I know a lot of people that are on one or the other. Either they're trying to force the keto diet down their throat, or they're trying to, or they just don't care. They're like, hands up, you eat what I want. Let's make separate meals. Right. And I think there's a healthy balance. And so I've always been like that. When I first started keto, Ashley was completely against it. And then 5 months in, she decided to try it, and she's never looked back. But we sat and we talked, and we decided that we understand that pregnancy comes with cravings. And while there are anti-nutrients in plants and fruit, I'm not denying those things. I think that our immune systems and our gut and all that deserve the chance, as we develop, to learn how to fight off those anti-nutrients and actually enjoy the nutrients that is there. And I think there is positives to that. And so I told her, I said, listen, like, I want you to listen to your cravings, but I just want you to at least first try to find a natural remedy for it. And she really took that upon herself. So she kind of opened up to more of what we would consider like a high fat paleo diet. So she eats sweet potatoes, she eats apples and peaches and like low carb fruit. She doesn't eat white potatoes or rice or pasta, or she never went back to that. But so like a day of eating for her, like, she'd wake up and she'll have like coffee with some half and half, and she'll have eggs with butter and raw cheddar. And then for lunch, she'll have a salad, maybe a couple cheese sticks, maybe half a peach. And then she'll have like a chicken, or maybe she'll make like a keto, like egg buffalo chicken casserole or something like that. She made homemade. And then for dinner, she'll do like taco pie, or we'll make like steaks, or we'll have hamburgers without the bun. She still doesn't eat bread or anything like that. And she might have like a sweet potato with it. And then for dinner, or for dessert, she might have like some Too Good yogurt with some heavy cream added, or she might do like a protein shake with some heavy cream added to it, or something like that to get the fats up. So that's like what a day of eating for her looks like. And it has gone amazing. I could not have asked for a better pregnancy. Like, and it's hard to preach to your own family, because we have other family members that are pregnant right now and they're having issues. And while, it's not like we haven't had scares and things. I think every pregnancy has things where you're like, ooh, but like, Ashley's only thrown up once, and it was not morning sickness. She just threw up because like a food made her nauseated. I think it was like 3 weeks ago, but she never had morning sickness. She never had like acne breakouts. She never had huge hormone dips. Haley is in the 52nd percentile. So she's almost perfect in terms of growth size. Like, she's a well-developed child, like kind of scary almost. Like when I see her, like I see her legs and her toes, and I'm like, you should not have that much of a well-defined frame. You're only like 20 weeks old. Oh my gosh. And so I could not have asked for a better pregnancy. Like, I think it's going well. Ashley did her glucose test. I posted about that on Instagram. She took the 50 grams of glucose, and in an hour, her blood glucose dropped down. It was at a 80, or like 80 something after 50 grams of pure sugar. Like, the amount of insulin sensitivity that woman has being pregnant is nuts. Like, not even like the exact opposite of gestational diabetes. And so I couldn't be happier. I think she's killed it.
That's awesome. So you've already named the baby. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Haley.
Her name is Haley Grace Shane. We called her Haley because Ashley wanted a Lee at the end of the name. So it was going to be either Riley or Haley because Ashley's name is unique. So it's spelled ASHLEIGH, not like.
Oh, okay.
Normally.
Yeah.
So Haley is HALIE or EIGH, right? So kind of like spelled like her mom. So yeah, we named her Haley. Yeah, I'm excited. I when it comes to plans for her, I kind of like the way Danny and Mama Vega do it, right? Like, meat-based, healthy fats. But I'm not going to I'm not going to force her to eat any vegetables. Like if she says she doesn't like broccoli, then the girl doesn't like broccoli. I'm not going to make her eat her broccoli. But if she wants some kind of veggie or fruit, I'm not going to stop her from having it. I'm not going to not make cakes for her, but I'll make sure that, obviously they're made with like almond flour or some kind of other healthy alternative. And if it's sweetened, it's going to be sweetened with honey or maple syrup or coconut sugar or something that's not going to have some of the addictive hyper palatable properties. Right. And of course it's going to be sparing like once a year or something like that, on her birthday or, whatever. But I want to make sure it's whole foods, and obviously I like the idea of like something Danny said was like, if we're using my money, these X foods aren't going to be in the house. But if you get an allowance and you decide to eat these, then that is your choice. Right. So I want to, because I don't want to create an eating disorder where like, I tell them no. And then they decide to eat a cupcake one day and they love it, even though it makes them feel like crap. And so they just like have like this secret eating disorder they can't tell their parents about. I never want that. So it's like that balance of like getting them a foundational base of like whole healthy foods, meat-based diet, and then empowering them to make their own food choices as they grow up. Because eventually you're not going to have control over anything, and you want them to feel empowered before they get to that point so that it's a smooth transition, right? So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
So you're saying you want them to be able to use their own head to think and make their own decisions?
Yes.
Oh, okay. What a concept. I love it. No, but I think that's a really good approach personally. And God, I wished I would have known back when my kids were babies what I know now. Yeah, it's just, it sickens me, but I mean, I didn't know what I didn't know. I believed the BS, that you're told. I bought that, and, so do so many people. So I think it's so important for what we do, is to kind of let them know, maybe there's a different way if what you're doing isn't working. And, me trying it for 40 years, I kind of figured out what wasn't really working. And speaking of that, let's go ahead and get into your approach to diet as in what you eat, not as in like Weight Watchers diet. You kind of have a unique approach a little bit. You're not really carnivore. You're not really keto. You're kind of.
Yeah. So backstory. So I did like keto, whatever, 75% macros. And then I started working with Robert Sykes for a bodybuilding prep, and he took me up to 80%. So I got to do high fat for almost a year. And then I did another prep, and I started playing with like higher protein keto. So I've done that. And all that. So higher fat, higher protein, I think both have their pros and cons as it pertains to keto, bodybuilding, muscle preservation, muscle growth, energy, hormone building. Like they all have their pros and cons. But I got to the point where like, I felt like I was pretty metabolically flexible in the sense of like, I could eat 60% fat and 75% fat. And I didn't feel any different on either. Like I could hop back and forth whenever I wanted. So like if I was really hungry and I wanted more food, I would just have a higher protein day. If I was feeling kind of groggy and I wanted more energy, I would just get a higher fat day, and I would just bounce back and forth. So I did that for a while. And then after the end of my last bodybuilding prep, I decided to get into endurance training, and I wanted to be, I wanted to qualify for Boston. And this is a kind of a rabbit hole, but we can totally get into the science of it. But basically I started running and everything was going fine. I was progressing well. And then I stopped progressing and I started going backwards, and my times and my runs got worse and my heart rate got worse and worse. And then eventually, after a couple months of this, I kind of went over the edge. I fell over the edge, and I started developing symptoms of what's known as UPS, which is unexplained underperformance syndrome. And basically it's where, due to cortisol, chronic stress, chronic fatigue, and bad recovery, your central nervous system kind of bogs out on you. It happens a lot in endurance athletes. And so you get depressive mood swings, your thyroid just freaks out. No matter if you eat a lot or eat a little, you don't lose or gain weight. You're in like this weird, like I could eat 3,500, which was my maintenance, and not lose anything. And I could eat 2,500 and I wouldn't lose anything. Like my body was just at this weird stalemate where it just wanted to like not move. It just wanted to freeze in time. And then like chronic joint pain. There would be times I would go for a run and my heart rate would go from like my resting heart rate of like 70 or 60, and it would shoot up to like 200. And like, you're talking like 10 minutes, like your heart's not even beating at that point. Right. And so like, I had two options really. Cause we tried high fat keto. We tried intermittent fasting. We tried high protein. We tried, I took 3-day breaks. I took a week off. I mean, I tried every single thing I could, and nothing was helping. And my glucose was weird. I had a CGM on. I have all this data. I have a YouTube episode about it and stuff. I show all these spreadsheets. I would wake up. So I would wake up, my fasted glucose would be like 100 or like 98. And then I would run and my glucose would go from like 98. It would dip down to 40. And then I would eat strict keto, mind you, and it would shoot back up to 100 or 100 plus, and it would stay there all day. I remember there was one day I was driving to my family's house in Arkansas, and I fasted all day, and my only meal was 2 keto bricks. That's 80. So my ratio was 85% fat. Like I woke up the next morning, my fasted blood glucose was 115.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then there was another night, I remember I looked at my CGM, and at midnight, my blood sugar spiked to like 130 for like no reason. And so to kind of give a backstory, because this kind of leads into what I'm doing now and why, because I feel like I need to preference all of this so that people don't just like, because one thing I don't like is when we talk about like targeted keto or whatever, as I'm going to get into, not to give it away, but some people talk about that and they don't really put any context. And so I don't think they really define the lines of like, hey, you should try this if you're experiencing these things. It's kind of, hey, I'm doing this. And then people try it and they fail miserably and they get upset, right? And there's like all these things. And so like, I really want to develop the story before I kind of say, hey, try this, right? But basically what was happening was I would run. And even if you're running at like a mafetone pace, which is like a fat oxidizing pace, right? Like you're not really like doing glycolysis, you're still depleting some glycogen. And then I was strength training. So I would run and then go lift weights, which is extremely glycolytic, right? And so not only is my glycogen being depleted extremely, but my cortisol is pretty high because running is pretty stressful on the body. And then my cortisol is even higher because cortisol activates glucagon in the pancreas to create sugar to replenish the glycogen, right? That's how ketogenic athletes are able to replenish, or carnivore athletes are able to replenish glycogen as fast as carb-based ones because of that response. But what we were finding was basically what was happening was my body was depleted of glycogen, right? So just for example, like this is not the numbers, but let's say I depleted 500 calories worth of glycogen. Over the course of the day, I might replenish 300 or 400 of that. And then the next day I would run again and my glycogen wasn't fully topped off. And so it would go from, instead of taking me from 1,000 calories to 500, it would take me from 800 calories to 300. And then the next day I would do it again. And eventually during like my long run on Saturday, I would hit 0. And when you bonk like that, your central nervous system freaks out. And so I just created this really bad environment. Like I remember it caused a lot of injuries. Like I tore my Achilles, I tore my ab, I tore my hip, I tore all kinds of muscles. I've had like 6 injuries since I started running. It was just a really bad environment. And I didn't know what to do. And so I really had 2 options, right? Because again, I had tried everything you could think of. And I was like, I either stop running or I got to figure something out. And one of my friends was like, why don't you target some carbs? And the idea behind it was if you give your body a quick source of glycogen replenishment after the run, it's going to bring cortisol levels down and it's going to help you top off before you train again. I said, okay. And so I tried it. And it was crazy. It was crazy. So I didn't change my carb intake, right? I was eating like 30, 40 grams of carbs a day, maybe 50, the most, vegetables, right? Salads or fruit or whatever. And so what I did was I took all of those and instead of doing that, I just concentrated that in the form of like a sweet potato, like directly post workout. And it was crazy. So I did it. And then 2 hours later, my blood sugar was 79, which I hadn't seen in months. The first time I did it, I was like, wait, what? And then the next morning, my blood sugar was in the 80s, which is 20 points less average than where I had been. And then 2 weeks into it, I woke up one morning and I was in nutritional ketosis, which I had been like averaging like 0.1, 0.2. So this targeted keto was oxidizing fat better in my body and keeping me better, giving me more stable fasted glucose than strict keto was because of how it was relating with my hormones. And so basically I've learned to love it, and I've played with it a little bit. I've done some experiments on like, is it better to have it at night before the run or post after the run? How many? And what I found was, I kind of put a name to it. The diet's called a targeted keto carnivore diet, because the idea is like all my carbs, like 95% of the carbs I eat are right after my run. And then the rest of my day is meat and animal fats. I might have some keto brick, but most of it's just, so like I'm basically carnivore except for right after my runs. I'll have like sweet potato. If it's a really high demanding day, I might have some like pure maple syrup, but like I don't eat rice. I tried rice once and it went terrible. My gut got tore up and I was like, never again, never again. No grains. But you know, I like it too, because like I got to try this. And so there have been clients of mine that run, and I've been able to help them implement this, and it has helped them so much. But also, one thing that I decided was, I thought back about, you know, before I had tried this, I was always like, you never need carbs ever. I know now that was out of ignorance, just because like, and I'm not saying 99% of humans don't need carbs, but there's particular situations where having some can be advantageous for the user, right? And it varies, right? It's very bio-individual, you know, mostly in endurance athletes. You definitely don't need carbs to build muscle or to be a bodybuilder or any of that. 100% you don't. But I would say you don't need them at all. And I realized, okay, so I need to try this, because if I try it and it doesn't work, then at least I can say I tried it and I know it doesn't work. But how can I say you don't need them or they won't be beneficial if I haven't tried it? And I'm so glad I tried it, because within, like, I have a journal and everything. I have all this data on a spreadsheet. Like my average fasted glucose went from like 100 to like 76. My average ketones went from like 0.1 to 0.4. Right. So like everything improved. Within 3 days, my joint pain went away. Within 2 weeks, my depressive mood swings went away. My runs got much better at this point. I'm actually starting to progress again. So, I mean, it helped a lot. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I know that was a long speech.
No, that's awesome. No, I think that's really cool. And I think it's an important lesson for people to understand that depending on where you're at, what you're doing, what your goals are, your diet is going to need to be altered a little bit. And it's not that one diet is better than the other necessarily. I mean, I think we can all agree that, you know, we don't really need the carbs that we're told we need, and the grains and the seed oils. I mean, that's a given for
100%.
Well, in our community. We all get that. But within there's a lot of room. There's a lot of room. And it just depends on what you were doing in your life, what part of life you're at, like hello menopause, and you know, and if you're under a lot of stress, I mean, you need to tweak things. So I love that you were actually willing to do that. And you know, because when you say stuff like that, sometimes in our community, it's like, oh, you just said a bad word. What do you mean? You know, and it's like, and I'm seeing a lot of that lately. So you know, yes, I'm a carnivore. Okay. But I also think it's perfectly fine if somebody else finds that certain carbs work for their body, as long as they understand that it, you know, what it's doing to them, or, you know, whatever. And you've done your research, you know, you've tried things. So that's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I'm sure you got a little flack for that. Yes, no?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I was scared too. Like when I first like did it, I was like, I'm not going to talk, because like I was talking to friends, but I was going to try it and I was nervous, but like I didn't want to give up running. It was either give up running or try this. And I was telling friends, and they're like, okay, just don't say anything until after you know it works. Don't say you're trying it and then afterwards go, this is a fail. If it doesn't work, just don't say anything. But if it works, tell people, because it might help them. And it worked. So I told people because it might help them. But I was definitely nervous. And you know, but you made a good point, because I think one of the things right now is people are going back to carbs in the community, but they're not doing what I did, right? Like I'm still staying under 50 grams of carbs average. I'm still eating less than 10% carbs. My diet's still 65, 70% fat. Like I'm eating a ketogenic diet. It's just the timing and the source of the carbs is different to help balance my hormonal equation. Really, I'm still fat fueled. I'm still fat based. I'm still in nutritional ketosis most of the day. So none of that's really changed. I'm still meat based, right? Meat and fat are king, bottom line, right? I think we could all agree on that. But a lot of people, like, they go back to carbs, quote unquote, and they just end up like going like 300 grams. Let me go back to sugar and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I was worried about my bulimia getting triggered. That was another thing that was scary. But when I had that, it was something weird happened. When I had the sweet potato, I've stopped eating keto treats. I don't even eat keto treats as often. Like my craving for sweets is like non-existent now. It's super weird. And so I don't know. Yeah. And again, like you're right. I did do a lot of studying. Like I know that sweet potatoes and acorn squash, which are my two bases, they're the least in phytonutrients and phytates, and lectins. Like they have the least amount of all of those. So I made sure that if I was going to do it, it was from something I could trust, something that was as clean as possible. Right. And I was using it, appropriately. And I wasn't being irresponsible or abusing it. Or I was going to pull back. And so far it's worked out well.
That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. And I really love how people, figure out what works for their bodies, not what it works for somebody else's body. Because I think too many people, they just want, just tell me what to eat. Just give me a plan. Tell me what to eat. Well, my approach as a coach is, okay, well, let's talk about this a little bit. And it's not there. You can start at a base. I mean, you can have a base, but it's their responsibility to figure out what works for their bodies, because I'm not inside their bodies. I can just kind of help and guide them and, troubleshoot. But beyond that, you have to experiment. You have to figure out what works for your body at that point in time, because tomorrow may be a different story, and you may have to readjust. And plus with your goals, like with your running, I mean, it's so important.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, no, 100%. Okay. Bioindividuality is king.
Yes, exactly. That was kind of my whole point with all that jibber jabber.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So let's get in a little bit about what exactly is a functional nutritional therapy practitioner. What do they do, and what is your approach? Like how are you using that?
Yeah. So I'm a FNTP. I would say I specialize in helping people lose weight and maintain, and also develop healthy lifestyle management with eating disorders and body dysmorphia. That would definitely be my practice. If that's what I can call it. There's a little bit of like gray lines, because like I'm not I'm not medically licensed. I'm just clinically certified. So there's like lines of like saying practice and diagnosing and things like that. But I would say that's the majority of what I work with. People that struggle with eating disorders, disordered view of food, and then also body dysmorphia, and helping them develop those long-term habits. Because weight loss obviously plays a part into like sustaining weight loss. That all plays a part into it. But actual nutritional therapy, its core is just like using food to treat symptoms, or not even treat, but to alleviate symptoms that could be possibly caused by a diagnosis, right? So looking at someone's symptoms and going, oh, those look like symptoms of possible thyroid dysfunction. Let's try these foods and let's see if we can alleviate these symptoms, right? So like, let's not try to treat the disease. Let's not diagnose you, but it's, oh, you look like you have signs of having hypothyroidism. You might or might not. Let's use these foods and let's see if we can alleviate these symptoms. And so it's just a more naturopathic way of attacking food. And we do it based off a premise of these 5 foundations, which are blood sugar regulation, digestion, fatty acid, vitamin and mineral balance. And is that it? Yeah, that's 5. Okay. I always try to make sure I say them all. Yeah. So it's digestion, blood sugar regulation, fatty acid, vitamins and minerals, and hydration. And so those are the 5 bases. And then, we look at how those affect the immune system, cardiovascular system, endocrine function. So like when I went to school, I learned about everything, like, which is really weird, because now when I see people, like, I remember when I saw people like eat like white flour based cake, right? Like I remember I would watch somebody eat that when I was just keto before school, and I would go, oh, that's bad for you. It spikes blood sugar, right? But like now I watch somebody eat something like that, and like I know what it does to their cell membranes, their mitochondrial function. Like I see it all happening in like real time, and I'm like, no, you know. So like it's one of those, ignorance is a negative form of bliss, you know, because like it's bliss, but it's kind of like you probably should know these things. But yeah, so basically what we do is we use those 5 foundations to alleviate symptoms of possible issues that could be arising through using food and lifestyle management. And that's basically what I've been trained to do. And I have classmates that I love them to death and we're all best friends, but like we defer on things. Like some of them don't think keto, no human should ever do keto. And then other ones, you know, but we all come from those 5 foundations, and we're all focused on helping people work from those 5 foundations and heal their body. And so it's cool because it's a foundational practice and learning experience, but you can take it and you can funnel it into your niche and your thought process, which mine is, you know, a fat metabolizing ketogenic based diet. And then how it becomes bio individualized for each of my clients really varies based on, you know, their fat needs, their hormone needs, their endocrine needs, their blood sugar needs. And, you know, we go from there.
Yeah, I love that. And like I was talking earlier, I'm really seriously considering heading in that direction and may start school in February. So that's kind of my plan so far, but everything I hear about it, and now, you know, talking with you a little bit more, I'm thinking that's a really good direction to go. And I wish more people would do that.
Yeah.
You know?
I love it because it really helped me understand, like, so for instance, when I got invited to talk at KetoCon before it became KetoCon Online last year, I mean, I still talked on KetoCon Online, but I remember like when I was going to talk, I had just started school and I wanted to talk about body dysmorphia. And I realized that, you know, it's the stories and science. And so I wanted to get a little bit nerdy with like the gut and the brain and how all of nutrition impacts the foundational hormones that allow us to feel good, and how that, you know, correlates with body dysmorphia, depression, you know, because they're kind of cousin disorders. A lot of people don't know that, but they're kind of cousin disorders, which we can get into why if you want to. But basically, school helped me understand the biology behind the mental disorder that I struggled with. And that was crazy. And so it's really helped me because now when I have a client that has a disordered view of themselves or a disordered view of food, it's not just, hey, let me give you keto macros. It's okay, I'm going to give you a food list and I want you to eat these fermented foods 3 times a week. I want you to take this, this, and this, and this supplement. I want you to do grounding 10 minutes, 5 times a week. Like I know practices that they can implement into their life that is going to help them have an overall better, holistic, healthy approach to their diet and health. And that's another thing that school really helped me develop and that's kind of why I changed my name from, like, some of my platforms are still the Keto Road because I still feel like fat metabolism is king. And so you build this road on these ketones, right? This road of life. But at the same time, the reason why I kind of changed it to Coach John was because I wanted people to come to me to adopt holistic health, right? This idea of like, it's not just about the macros, but it's, you know, are they catering towards your mood, towards the way that you feel, the way you function? How do you feel about yourself? Because I truly believe that for weight loss to be sustainable and for, you know, for health to be sustainable, it has to, every facet of it, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, all of that has to come together. And school really helped emphasize and reinforce that that was the right way to go for me.
Okay, so this was kind of one of my questions and it kind of feeds in directly with this, and you kind of answered a little bit, but okay. So we have the school of thought of if it fits your macros. What is your thought on that?
I made a post the other day and I totally got, like, some of my friends like put police emojis on it for like being the keto police, and I'm fine with that. I'm sorry, I do have a strong opinion. I think that so why do people go from it fits your macros to keto? It's because if it fit your macros sucks. It's because a lot of people have eating disorders. All it does is try to entice you to eat a controlled amount of foods that make you feel out of control, which is stupid. You know, and obviously it's like, you know, people are like, you know, some of the big picture people in the eating disorder world are like, you shouldn't restrict. And restriction and empowerment are perspectives, not realities. And what I mean by that is that if I choose to eat keto, you can either go, oh, I'm restricted, I can't eat rice. Or you can go, I'm empowering myself to choose not to eat rice.
Yes.
Right. So like, yeah. So like empowerment and restriction are perspectives, not the reality, right? The reality is just you're not eating that food. Now, whether you decide to look at it as I'm being told I can't or I'm choosing not to is completely up to you. And so I think that that's poppycock. But anyways, I know I have weird slang words. It's fine. But you know, if it fits your macros sucks for a lot of people that struggle with eating disorders and control of food. And so we don't do it because going to keto helps stabilize blood sugars. Also, it tends to help with mood. Why? Because it's better for you than the foods that people eat with if it fits your macros. So really, if we're just trying to fit the macros on keto, it's not any different than if it fits your macros. That's exactly what you're still doing. And I get it, like hitting the macros and hitting the macro ratios. And again, like another big one for keto is like, as long as it doesn't kick you out of ketosis. And I'm like,
yes.
Because like, especially, and maybe that's why people, because I've had like a lot of people unfollow me lately, and which I don't really care. Like, if you don't want to stay, bye, right? Bye, Felicia. But like, I think it's because like I am against the whole idea that just because it keeps you in 0.5, because we can talk about that. Not everybody even hits 0.5 depending on biology. So if you don't hit 0.5 and you're doing keto, don't let people tell you you're not doing it right. They can shut up. But like, it's kind of like, what about like, for instance, I put up a post about Bisquick and Carb-Quick, right? Literally Carb-Quick has more wheat in it than Bisquick. But yet, because it's fiber, it's keto friendly. That is the most ignorant, stupid thing. But what's sad is that a lot of people, and there are a good handful of people in the space that preach that this stuff is still disgusting. But a lot of the big influencers don't, because they want to be able to eat this stuff. And so they're not going to validate that it's bad, because if they do, then they have to not eat it. And so that happens a lot. And so we empower these companies to keep making these crap foods. People don't understand how capitalism works. We are the consumer. If we decide not to eat something, even if they put keto friendly on it because it has wheat gluten in it, and we empower ourselves to choose not to fund that food, they will stop making it and they will try to come out with a healthier version to try and make us happy. We control all of that, and we don't seem to understand that we have that power. And so we just buy what we buy, and we don't understand that we're feeding these people the idea that these foods are okay, and they're not. Because, okay, yes, it doesn't spike your blood sugar, but what is it doing to your gut microbiome? What is it doing to your endocrine system? What is it doing to your libido? What is it doing to your thyroid? I know of things where, like, so for instance, I'm getting kind of nerdy here, but like, if you have really bad omega-6s in your body, it can really disrupt the integrity of the cell membrane. And so it can make it too rigid. And so things can pass through or not pass through very well. And so like, let's say that it's too solid. Let's say the structure is too tight and things can't get into the cell due to inflammation or whatever that can come with omega-6s and rancid fat and vegetable oils. So what can happen is your thyroid's functioning great, but the T4, that's the metabolized version of the T3, can't get into the cell. And so that's called cellular hypothyroidism. And so even though the thyroid's producing great, your cells can't use the thyroid. It's just floating in the blood. So you can like get like blood tests and your thyroid looks fine, but your cells can't absorb it. And so you're still like not losing weight. You're having all these issues. And literally it could be because even though you're on keto and your blood sugar is fine, you're eating all these foods that are inflaming your cell membranes. And so you can't metabolize thyroid hormones like you should. Like literally that can happen, but people don't think like that. They just think, oh, is, you know, but then they're not losing weight. And here's the thing that sucks is that, okay, yeah, there's like those, I'm ranting now. There's like those 30 or 40% people that can eat these things and lose weight. And that's great. But what about the other 60 that can't, and they decide keto is not for them? And then you go, you know what? Keto is not for everybody. When if they would just do it the right way, if you were promoting it the right way, not only would they stay, but they would see success long-term. But because, you know, this influencer doesn't want to give up this food and they want to, you know, go by this ideology, they kind of feed this rhetoric. And then when that person tries it and it doesn't work, they instead of maybe thinking about the fact that those foods aren't good for you, they go, oh, I guess keto is not for you. You should try something else. You'll be fine. And so like, I don't know. It's just like this vicious circle. So yeah, just if it fits your macros, I think it's poppycock. I think that, you know, and so that's one thing that I love, like about like Robert Sykes, right? Like he has a very, you know, low total carbs, and I totally respect that. And I definitely think there's a place for that. And some humans thrive. I know I do. I know from a therapeutic standpoint, I thrive off of 80% fat. Like if I really want to if I have like super inflammation, I just can't deal with it. 80% fat for a little while, if I'm not running, if I'm not like creating that stress, works great. Right. But like it's not just about the macros for him, right? Like he eats steak, butter, keto bricks, right? Like he eats whole, good, well-sourced foods. And, you know, Danny Vega's another one. He cycles in carbs, but it's always, you know, meat based, right? Just like me. Like I definitely follow more of like a Danny Vega diet now. I should have just said that. I eat like Danny Vega. But like, you know, meat based, fat, whole foods, right? Like he doesn't play around with all this garbage. But so many people do because they're trying to make it just fit their macros, and it's so detrimental to everything outside of blood sugar. So,
I know that gets to me too. And like so many people talk about how, oh, well, like Weight Watchers is such an awesome diet program because you can have whatever you want. Okay, sure. I lost weight 4 different times, 80 to 100 pounds doing Weight Watchers. Yes, it works. Sure. I could do the same thing eating candy bars. Does it make it good for your body? Does it improve your health? And, you know, now that my eyes have been open, I can't shut them anymore, you know? And so when I see stuff like that, I'm just like, oh, no. I mean, yes, you can lose weight. If that is your only goal and you do not care about your body or your health, and you're just only concerned about the outside, yeah, just have 1,000 calories of a candy bar a day. I mean, you know.
You're getting me hot here. Like, I can get a tangent about abs don't equal health. That's a big thing. And I think that's something people don't like me talking about either, because men don't like to hear that. They don't like to hear that getting a 6-pack might be unattainable for them. And that's actually an okay thing, right? Or like they can get it, but they're not going to keep it. And that's like they don't want to hear that. They want it. They want the guy that's ripped to go, you can maintain 10% body fat on keto. This is how you do it, right? Like, and they don't talk about the fact genetics come into play, genetic disposition of fat cells. And not to say that like you can't be lean, you can't be 15% body fat, or a woman can't be 20% body fat and be healthy, but that's not 10. There's a big difference between 15 and 10% body fat, and the way that it affects individual humans' hormones, their ability to function, their ability to think, their ability to secrete thyroid and leptin. Like, it's crazy how much. And again, you know, it's just how people are visual, right? And sex sells. And so like you post a photo of you having abs and it's like, oh, wow, he should be somebody to listen to. And I go, you know, I post a picture of some extra chub and I'm like, listen, like this is me when I'm not trying to be lean, because this is just, you know, being human. And they're like, ew, you know, and it's like, dude, this is how you should be. it's like a whole thing. I know.
Yeah. I know it is very frustrating, but I mean, I was in that aesthetic world too, where I believed that, not that I was ever like that, but my body was not genetically disposed to be that way. But yeah, it's crazy, but I see it all the time. And I've had multiple guests on and they've talked about what it costs to look like that what we perceive as being healthy, which in fact was not healthy, because you're factoring in what they're doing to their body, what they had to do to get there, the eating disorders and other disorders that go on along with that. It just kind of happens, and it's not just isolated. This is widespread through, you know, like bodybuilding and the figure competitions and stuff like that. So
yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I've prepped for 2 bodybuilding competitions, and the place that you have to go to get that lean, and granted, I only got to like 8% body fat, 9%. I wasn't even like, you know, that 5'4" freaky looking stuff. Like the place that you have to go in your head and like mentally to get to that point is not okay for the average human. And not to say that, like, I'm not telling like men that haven't done it that, oh, you're not tough enough to do it, but it takes another level of grit that not all humans have. And you're definitely not something that you should maintain, even if you do have that level of grit. But yeah, a lot of people, I've had a couple friends recently that have leaned out to that point, and they've been like, dude, it's their first time, and they're like, bro, I cannot believe you did this. You're insane. And I'm like, well, imagine holding those calories for 4 more weeks, because you got to get on stage, dude. And he's like, dude, I couldn't even. And I'm like, yeah, like it's people don't understand what it takes. And yeah, so I think if they did, they would understand how unhealthy it really is. And they would realize that there's a healthier version of them that's happy. And like, you know, what are your real goals? Are your real goals to really get abs, or do the abs make you feel like you can do your real goals? Right. So like, is your real goal to get lean, or is your real goal to like run around with your friends and kids and you feel like if you have abs, it showcases that you can do that better? Because that's just not the fact. It's just not the truth, right? Like, who cares? Like, if you can run around with your kids and keep up with them, then like, and that's your goal, who cares if you have abs with it? I mean, I know it's hard because every man wants to, and if you want to experience that once, just to see if you have like the toughness to do it, by all means. But I think having a broader, healthier, like vision of like what health really is in your own life is huge. And I really try to help my clients develop that, because a lot of them, they struggle with, like, women and men, like, oh, I need to be this certain weight. And I'm like, but why? And they're like, because I just feel healthier. And I'm like, but are you healthier? Look at your blood. Look at what you're able to do. You're an extremely healthy individual. Why does having this weight on the scale dictate whether you're healthy? Especially like look at your hormone levels. They're like perfect right now. What if you got down to those 10 pounds and your hormones tanked? What would you do then? Would you be okay with that? And they'd be like, no, I try to get my hormone. Like, well, what if you had to gain the weight to get the hormones back up? Because your body will regulate based off of body fat too. That plays a role. And so it's like, what really is health? And I don't think a lot of people a lot of humans don't take time to wrap their minds around that. And then on the other end, even if they decide not to try and do that themselves, a lot of people, when they hire a coach, that coach does not take time to explain that side of things, which is why, like, with my company, me and Mike Gormy,
Gormy, love him.
Yeah, we really try to promote that we're holistic health coaches. Like, I used to be a ketogenic weight loss coach, and I still am, but I'm all about, I want to teach people the broader view of things. I want to help you keep this weight off and be happy with yourself,
Yes. And that's exactly where I've evolved to. And that's why you don't see as often. I used to post a lot of before, after, for inspiration, et cetera, like that. But I just feel like we tend to focus way too much on aesthetics. And just because you see a before and an after, I have lots of before and afters from other diets too. Okay. And does that mean that I was healthy in the after? I'm going to tell you, I wasn't. Mm-hmm. I am now, but if you just look at the pictures, you're going to go, oh, wow, you look good. Well, yeah, I did. But you know what I had to do to keep looking that way was eating a complete crap diet and continually getting worse health-wise. And my hormones were, wackadoodle. And so what is the point of looking so hot if you're so unhealthy and you can't maintain it anyway? I never was able to maintain that way. Mm-hmm. And so I've kind of backed away a little bit from showing as much, before after kind of stuff. I don't know. I just feel like we need to focus more on, like what you're saying, the overall health and, what can you do day to day versus, okay, you get up on the stage and you look like this kind of thing, which I'm not dissing that by any means, because I have a lot of respect for that, because I sure couldn't do it, but I wouldn't want to do it. Let me put it that way. Maybe I could, but I would not want to do it. Know what you have to do. Well, okay, so we're coming down to time, but would you like to leave a bit of advice or anything we didn't get to touch on that you wanted to?
Yeah, I think if I could, okay, I guess I'll go with like one of those, like, if I could say anything to anybody that's watching this right now, it would be to, like, don't be satisfied, like never settle. Like I say that a lot. Like it's like my quote at the end of my post, like never settle. And that term, while it just sounds like I'm trying to be cool, it means a lot to me, right? Because I think that oftentimes we settle for, that person's idea of a physique or diet. And so we just chase that, or we settle for this, or we settle for that, or like we settle with just losing the weight and we don't work on our inner self, right? We don't work on that, like our identity, our purpose, right? And so I just feel like you'll never be perfect in this life. You just won't be. You're always going to have imperfections until you die. And so, realize that, and realize that take the opportunity, have perspective here, and realize that means that you always have room to grow. Right. And so, like, never settle on your health, never settle on your goals, never settle on anything. Like, keep striving to be the best you can possibly be, in every facet, not just like being lean or being this, right? Because we get hyper focused, but in a broad sense, look at your entire life in every facet and go, how can I be the best me in all of these things at the same time, and pursue that goal and never be satisfied with anything less.
I love that. That's perfect. Great ending, Jonathan. I love it. Well, it has been a pleasure having you on, and thank you so much for sharing your story. I know some things are kind of still, you know, hurtful to some degree, but to see where you've come and where you are now, I'm so happy for you. And I don't know, I'm inspired. It just gives me a lot of joy to see somebody, you know, really evolve, I guess you would say, and, you know, all that good stuff. So
well, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. Yeah, some of it's sensitive, but I've gotten so used to talking about my past. Like, it's just whatever, like, you know, because I know it's going to help somebody. And so every time, no matter how awkward one conversation or one thing might be, if it makes somebody else have a light bulb moment and it changes their life, totally worth it.
I agree. And most of the time I'm pretty good too, but every so often there'll be something that kind of sneaks up and bites me right in the butt. And I'm like, ooh, I think I'm a little sensitive still there. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I thought I was good. Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
It happens, but you know, that's growth. That's, you know, like you said, you always got to be working on getting better and improving and, you know, that kind of thing. So it's all good. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on, and y'all subscribe to my channel and go follow Jonathan. I'll have all his information below. And again, it was a pleasure. Thanks so much, Jonathan.